About a month ago, we did a segment with you on how to read a pesticide label. Well, today I want to elaborate on that a little bit more and talk to you about toxicity of pesticides. Now, whether we're talking about synthetic or organic, pesticides are designed to control pests or kill pests. Now, some are highly toxic even at smaller amounts, but how do you determine the toxicity level of a particular pesticide? Well, first of all, remember that pesticides include insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, rodenticides, miticides, and nematicides. They're all considered a pesticide. And the toxicity measurement is usually done with a number given that's called an LD50, which is a value expressed as milligrams of chemical per kilogram of body weight of the animal. Now that number is then used to rank pesticides according to their acute toxicity. So now let's define acute toxicity. Well, that refers to its ability to do systemic damage as a result of a one-time exposure to relatively large amounts of chemical, and that's the pesticide that we're talking about there. Now, since an LD50 value is measured from 0 up, it means that the lower the number, the more acutely toxic that pesticide is. And let me give you some examples of some common ones that we use every day in the garden or landscape. Many of us are familiar with the insecticide nicotine. It has an oral LD50 of 55. Now, nicotine has been taken off the market and is going to be changed over to restricted use simply because of this reason with that lower number. Compare that to rotenone with a number of 350. 7 has an LD50 of 500. Just everyday aspirin that we would use in the home has an LD50 of 1200. Compare that to malathion with an LD50 of 1375, and lastly, salt, another common product in the home, with a number of 3320. Now again, remember, the lower the number, the more toxic. So in this ranking that I've given you, salt would be considered the less toxic. Well, with an LD50 number, if you think about it, have you ever seen that particular number on a pesticide label? Well, the answer to that is no. So how do we know then which pesticides are more toxic based on that number? Well, you almost have to do a conversion, and that's based on a signal word that's given on a pesticide label. And I've got some examples here to show you. First of all, you'll see that these two particular bottles have a signal word of caution. This one is warning, and this one is danger, and I'm going to show you how to convert those over based on the LD50 number. And the way that you need to do that is by getting a fact sheet at your county extension office, and this one is 7457, toxicity of pesticides, and it gives you the LD50s of the particular pesticides. Then you have to look at the diagram and convert it over, and basically there's 4 categories, and these are acute toxicity measurements. And a highly toxic would be the signal word again of danger, and sometimes you'll see the skull and crossbones on the particular label, and these are almost always restricted use, meaning you have to be certified before you can purchase them. And the categories of LD50 are based on either oral contamination, dermal, or inhalation. I'm going to give you the numbers for oral. If the number falls between 0 and 50, again it would be rated danger or highly toxic, and the dose to do that would be a few drops to a teaspoon would be the probable dose to cause toxicity. The next category would be moderately toxic, which gives the label warning signal of warning, and that number, LD50, would be 50 plus to 500, and that's anywhere of a dose of around a teaspoon to an ounce. Next category would be slightly, it gives you the caution signs, and the number would be 500 plus to 5,000, and that's about an ounce to a pound of chemical. Then the last category, which really would be considered the least toxic, would be also caution, relatively non-toxic, and it would be over 5,000 would be your LD50 rating, and that's about a pound to a pound of the pesticide. Now again, you have to have the fact sheet to first start out with the LD50, then it converts it over to the signal word. But as usual, there's always exceptions to the rule, and as our pesticide coordinator told me, he wouldn't mortgage a house on these numbers and the signal words because of an example that I want to share with you. Rotenone, remember, had an oral LD50 of 132. Now that really would make it fall under the category where it should have a warning on its label, but if we look at this one, and this is a mix, it has caution on it. Well, why would it not coincide with the number that we've just talked to you about? And there's another explanation for that. And that reason is because if you look under active ingredient, it has less than 1% rotenone in it. So what he's telling us is that 90% or more is inert ingredients or some other active ingredient. So the amount of the pure ingredient, in this case rotenone, even though normally the LD50 would be ranking it as warning, because there's so little of it in the product, that actually bumps up its safety category where it was labeled as caution, which again is considered less toxic than if it would have had a warning label on it. So that may sound confusing to you, but I think if you'll read the label again, get the fact sheet where you can find out what the LD50s are, and then compare them over, you'll see that anytime you see caution, warning, or danger, you'll know which ones are more toxic, less toxic, and it might put you a little bit more at ease when you're using these particular types of pesticides.